Got it.
We're alive.
Uh, uh, well, good morning again.
Good morning.
Our subject is truth, honestly.
It's a big subject.
Oh my. It's been one that I've been rummaging around with in my mind a little bit and just observing more closely how truth is experienced, if you will, in aware living. Um, Maybe we can put that slide up if that sort of works for you, Philo, and we can kind of start where we'll end up. Start at the beginning, as Krishnamurti might say, or some other wise person. So, the only truth there is in passively attending this moment, in watching what is present or present, in watching what is present here and now, in loving reality. That kind of clears perhaps some of our or my own historic misunderstandings about truth. One of the ones, Philo, you mentioned was the belief in words.
Yes. And maybe it's through our schooling, going to school and learning how to read and reading textbooks and the teacher reading from the blackboard. And maybe we get acculturated that way into believing that truth comes in the form of words. And then as we grow up and we get into watching television and online media and stuff, and now there's a barrage of words coming from people in authority, politicians, celebrities, journalists, and we take on all of their truths. And maybe by doing that, we let go of our own inner truth, and we're lost in the world of truths. And there's so many truths out there,
In that
right?
way. Mm-hmm.
In that way, there's so many false or fake realities, and each of them totally believed in by the perpetrators, you know, and we have to contend with all of that.
And one of the things I recognized in my advertising writing career is that the printed word, more than the spoken word, far more than the spoken word, has a believability to it. You can say, I saw the truth. I read whatever. I saw it. And well, that's just a representation of truth. All words are symbols and represent conceptually what actually is. So most of us, though, spend a lifetime in our own truth. That is, our own set of beliefs. We're entangled very much in them, aren't we?
Yes, very much. The words come through as thoughts, and we believe our thoughts, and we even think that the thoughts are us. That's that.
Imagine that.
Imagine. Shocker. The thoughts are not us.
It comes back to that nature of our search for something to believe in
Hmm.
because of our inner insecurities, our fears that of what might happen and our desires to control outcomes.
Right.
Boy, that's a huge motive to find something and believe in it. And in fact, when we make some move in our beliefs, we often just substitute another set of beliefs. Because in some way we can't stand being without an opinion or a whole bunch of opinions and feeling we know the truth.
Yes. And as you were saying in that that card that we just looked at, outside of this moment, truth is just an inference. It's something that it's a belief. And this is really the only truth we can know for sure, this actuality now. And it's so easy to forget that and go off into the land of truths, and which very quickly, like you say, turns into the land of beliefs.
Yes, yes. And our cultured truth is one that society and tradition and our peers and education, all of those things support and encourage one to think that one is a person with personal being. The word being doesn't fit with the word personal. Being is not personal. Reality is not personal. What is not personal. But we project as humans and as conditioned beings um, a personal relationship. And therein lies so much disappointment, um, suffering.
Yes, we're set up for that. We're kind of we're the fall guys in that regard. We're the marks at the table when it comes to how we fall into suffering. And it just seems to be a part of the nature of being a human. And it's just something we have to accept. But in accepting that, we also can never overlook being, the being part of the human, which is universal. It's what makes us all one.
Right.
It's what makes the universe one. And it's so crucial to not forget that amidst all of the personal drama. If one can hold both things in both hands and treat them equally, then we would have some balance of harmony. But we tend to choose one over the other.
It seems helpful, at least it was for me, to take the question, who am I, deeply into the being side of my human equation, not into the mind. The mind might initially engage in that question, who am I, with well, I'm James Waite, I'm a father, all the descriptions of that the mind can produce, and including perhaps some low estimates of what one thinks one is, because there's that in there, the insecurities, etc., that come up in all of those I'll call them psychological assessments. But if one is can park that mind's answer to the question, who am I? And kind of sit with it in a quiet way. It helps the mind to settle. It's kind of like if you have a glass full of muddy water and you just sit it on your desk and maybe come back in 10 minutes or whatever, and the mud settles out. The ideas, the beliefs can settle out in quiet, more so. In chaos, pretty tricky. In fact, for me, I had to have a lot of quiet, a lot of solitude, and walks in the woods, quiet, maybe occasionally quiet talks with a friend. But basically, the conflict meter in one's mind needs to kind of drop back out of the red zone. And it does when one just settles and relaxes a bit, maybe plays a little music. In my case, I love to play, pardon me, what I call adagio music, because the speed of it and the tone of adagio music is very conducive to kind of inner relaxation. Whereas a lot of other music, including a lot of Beethoven and whatever, depending on the movements, it kind of incites drama and um, excitement in a way that is distracting from resting in being.
Yes. The that question, who am I? That for me immediately produces what we might call presence. It seems to work that way, that it immediately throws you back on yourself and you become present. And but for a long time, I I would ask that question in the self-inquiry practice, waiting for some answer.
Ah,
and
yes, yes.
and knowing that the answer could never come from the mind, I was waiting for something to arise, and the answer was staring me in the face the whole time. The answer was the very silence. The non-answer was the answer. Like, who am I cannot be said. There's no answer for it. The answer is the silence that you find yourself in after asking that question and waiting quietly in being for the answer. So just the waiting quietly in being is the answer. And that fools people for a while, that just people are looking for an answer. Something miraculous, something unusual, out of patterns. And it's much, much simpler than that. It's very subtle. And then that silence can envelop you and you can just spiral down into it. And
Mm.
it's very, very interesting, illuminating.
Mhm.
And it's just how Ramana says, he just says, be as you are, you're already here. And just if a thought comes up, question the thought. Who's this thought appearing to? And that immediately throws you back inwards. It's very, very smart. It's this same state that's here now. It's this same answer. And the answer is always there, readily apparent. But we're busy looking for truths out there somewhere. Someone's going to give it to me, or it's going to hit me out of the blue, or I'm going to read it in a book. And the whole time it's here. It's this.
Yes, we think in time, in terms of time. Time, the mind invents time. I don't mean chronological time, sun up, sun down kind of time, but psychological time, so that there's a process in our mind. Well, who am I? Well, I'll know that in time if I can make certain efforts and listen to wise people, and they'll tell me what to do. It might be 3 steps, it might be 12. It, and I'll have a method, a technique, a way to become, not to be, but to become. And that's the trap of the mind and belief, that eventually, with time and effort, I, James, the egoic construction of James, will become, oh, let's say, just happy. Because that's all we really want, is we want to be happy. We think, though, that happiness lies in objects, relationships, um, events, occasions.
Yes, we're not seeing that actually our innate happiness is illuminating those things. That's what's happening. Our own happiness that's innate to being illuminates the world and our objects and our relationships. But somehow we think that it's coming from the outside in. No, it's coming from the inside
Out.
out. If you like that analogy, inside and outside are kind of concepts, but the pointer is that we're the source of happiness. It's not out there somewhere.
Mhm.
And that's another of the insights one gets once one begins to dwell in being, sit and rest in being. And suddenly all of these insights, all of these truths arise. And you realize that they're all here. They were never anywhere else but here. And that's a revelation. And that's really what all of the teachings and all of the teachers are pointing to, that simple fact. But as humans, the mind gets involved, like you say, and extrapolates and moves away from that into ideas and concepts and truths that are out there somewhere in time and so on. It's another one of the human dilemmas.
We're trapped in our truth, our personal truths, truths
Yeah.
plural. Yeah.
I like
We,
looking at words. I like being a wordsmith or a former wordsmith.
yes, yes, me too.
The word belief, James, it has in the middle of it lie, Lie.
Ah, yes.
It's a clue,
Yes. No beliefs, no believer.
and no lies.
But it's interesting because reality clearly, and all of us can probably recognize it just like immediately right now, reality doesn't require any belief or any believer. It's self-evident, self-fulfilling. The truth is that we live it. We are living actively, verb form, truth. The only access we can have to truth is via that recognition, that intimacy with direct experiencing of this moment as it is, passively. That's an interesting point about in our experiencing of reality, of the invented reality, of the believed reality. There's a going out into life, a kind of ego moves into experience that it wants and fearing the experience that it doesn't want. And it's shaping and maneuvering and trying to find the happy sweet spot, which occasionally it does. It can be satisfied for a little bit, like I did when I bought my BMW kind of thing. We all have those experiences of yes. But coming back to the way reality is, the meaning of it is realized when we passively allow it to present as it is, exactly as it is. And italics on exactly, because whoa, I want to shape that a little bit, or, I'll take part of that, but not the whole thing. No. So there's a passive element in recognizing reality and truth. That being said, it becomes, when one is coming from that recognition, there's an active, non-personal intimacy and astonishment and wonder and joy and peace and delight in the simplest kinds of occasions. In picking up a cup, I have a stone here that I fished out of a creek bed back in California, up in Marin Highlands. And at that time, I was sort of more into Zen. One of my teachers, Adyashanti, is a Zen person. And the notion you mentioned earlier, Philo, about letting truth sink more and more into the being. It's not our being, because it's not personal. But I glance at this, and it's got something as above as below, sky and earth. It's kind of a metaphor in stone for reality, and it sits there for my occasional gaze, and it's always a fresh seeing. This is the other thing about the truth. It's a living thing. So it's, first of all, everything is changing all the time. Everything is changing all the time, but we meet it with our conditioned beliefs. And we meet today with yesterday. Our quote truth of yesterday gets transferred into the present and the supposed future.
Yes, that stone, it reminds me of the story of the Buddha teaching and with Kasyapa, who was considered very advanced. And at a certain moment, the Buddha picks up a flower. And the only one that really got it, what was happening there was Kasyapa. And all he did was smile. And the Buddha knew that he was the Dharma heir, just in that smile. Because it was that simple. It was like there are all these Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths, and 8 of this and 10 of that. And this is it here, this flower. That's the truth. That's nirvana. And we have moments like that. We do have moments like that, like you with that stone. Yesterday, I was driving in traffic and the car stopped and I looked out the window and there was just this little green hedge and some flowers and they were just gently waving in the wind.
Mm,
And there was just silence. And it was like in a moment of eternity.
yes.
The car, the person, the green leaves, the flowers, the wind, the sky, the traffic noise. It's just one thing. And it was, and I didn't want to say anything in the mind about it afterwards. The traffic moved and we moved on, and I just let it go. It was just let go of. No one let it go. It was let go of. It was reality moving on.
Yes. Yes.
That's true.
Mhm.
So that truth, as you say, it's in every moment. Every moment is true, and only that moment is true.
Right. Not, not the moment that's past. It's
Exactly.
no longer, quote, true. No. Just this living fresh now.
Yeah. The truth is all we have. It's all that we really have. It's all that we are.
And something knows that when we, especially if we just take a little time out, find a peaceful off ramp, give that opportunity to nourish our deeper longing, our one of the things that I recognized that like created a lot of suffering for me for many, many decades was the pretensions of being somebody who was needy, that had to look just so, and the lyrics, he walked into the room like he was just stepped off his yacht. I can't remember all the song right now, but Carly Simon sang it. Um, I really spun a web of deception for myself in so many ways, and small and large pretensions. And that's probably what's behind one of my operating modes, so to speak, in aware living, and that is to let nothing bind, because it's our pretensions, in one way of putting it, that bind us to so much suffering. And really, what aware living about is attending this moment And it's not a you that's attending the moment, it's attention itself, awareness itself. That's only ever what's really able to, if you will, if to use words, to attend.
Yes, sometimes I like to think of this setup, this body-mind setup, as a kind of empty container in which things happen.
Mhm.
The container, even in its emptiness, thinks that it's full, thinks that it's a something with experiences happening to it. But over and over and over again in our lives, we see that that container has a certain span and then it shatters. And then the emptiness inside becomes one with the emptiness outside. And truth is known. And that shattering can be the death and dissolution of the body, or it can just be truth deciding to be true
Mm.
and just shattering that body mind, which is in itself a belief structure. It's just a belief. It's just a part of the display that's appearing. It's not separate from the display. It's not different from the display. It's a component of the display. And once we get beyond that, beyond thinking of ourselves as that, and that is a very, very incredibly sticky belief, that one. And I had conversations with friends just last night who are still stuck in that belief. Although the glue's beginning to loosen, at least I like to think so. But they still have these beliefs and they're strong. And once they loosen and dissolve and unbind and unravel, then the truth can be known. And the truth is so blindingly simple and obvious and in your face. And it's so close that you miss it.
Totally close. It's what we
it,
are.
it couldn't be any closer. And that's why it's missed. It's like my forehead cannot see itself, right? Because it's too close. Because it is the forehead. And so it's kind of like that. But once that's known in the way that we can know as humans, then everything falls away out of that and the resolution can happen. Happiness can now manifest freely without conditioning and beliefs.
And there's a death in every moment because it's literally changed, gone, passed on,
Mm.
passed away. um, Life and death are two sides of the same coin, to use a common metaphor. And you cannot have reality, which is, you cannot recognize reality, the freshness of it, the nowness of it, without there being the ending of any acquisition or accumulation of knowing. So you keep learning to know. It's an active thing. Oh yes, this is what's happening now. This is what's happening now. It's not a, you cannot bring, and I'm talking about psychological here. I'm not talking about functional experience, but the psychology, if you will, of knowing and the fear that one feels, the insecurities that one feels in that knowing, just need to be seen in a direct and immediate open reception. The example you made, Philo, of the flower, just, talk about clarity. If you want clarity, just for a moment, just find a quiet moment, place, and look at a flower.